good evening to all attendees. My name is Kani and I'm the Program Director for the program Dietetics with Nutrition in International Medical University. I'd like to welcome all of you and thanks for joining us for today's webinar entitled Get a Global Career in Dietetics. Today we have 4 eminent speakers who's going to speak about what is the career in dietetics is about, and we will hear about the curriculum of Dietetics with Nutrition program in IMU and the credit transfer option with our partner university, Griffith University, Australia. Before we start, I have a few housekeeping rules. We have muted all your speakers and microphones, all right, for all the attendees. We would love to hear from you, so please put in your questions and feedbacks using the question and answer panel. We will answer all your questions at the end of the webinar. And please be reminded that this webinar will be recorded, right? Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Professor Dr. Rinichi, right? Professor Dr. Rinichi is currently the professor in Division of Nutrition and Dietetics in IMU. She is currently the president of Malaysian Dietitians Association. Prof. Winnie is an eminent figure who has made quite a lot of changes in the face of dietetics in Malaysia. We are very proud to have her with us in IMU. Prof. Winnie has served in a lot of working committees on clinical practice and nutrition guidelines in Malaysia. She's also serving in the Malaysian Allied Health Professional Council, which is the council that is responsible for registration of dietitians and allied health professionals. She is very active in research and publication. She has numerous publications in the field of diabetes, obesity, bone health, and also chronic kidney disease. Prof. Winnie also runs a clinic as a consultant dietitian in the IMU Healthcare Diet Clinic. So without further ado, Prof, I'll pass the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Kani, and good afternoon to everyone. It's nice to meet my colleagues from Griffith University and also to all the participants who's taken their lunchtime to actually join us to know more about the profession of dietetics. Now, if I can just share my slides, let me just do that. Can everyone see my slide, Kani?
Yeah. Yes, Prof, it's visible.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. So, right. So I'm happy to see that there are about 30 over participants today that is interested to know more about the career as a dietitian in Malaysia. And thanks, Kani, for the kind introduction. I have spent about 27 years of my career in as a dietitian in Malaysia, and also trying to lead the profession and making changes to the profession. It's come a long way since when I first started. I was the 4th batch of dietetics students who graduated locally from the National University of Malaysia. And ever since then, I've seen great changes in this career. And I must say that every day that I am working as a dietitian and doing what I do, it has been very fulfilling. And I hope to inspire the rest of you who are, thinking about joining us in IMU as to do dietetics, or thinking about transferring to our partner school in Griffith to get a global experience. I don't think you're going to regret this choice. So in the next 20 minutes or so, I'll try and cover a bit about what do we do as dietitians in Malaysia. What are the career choices that you have? Where can you work? What kind of salaries are we going to get? What's the job prospects like? I'll also highlight a little bit about what it's like studying dietetics in IMU, and also some international experience. What are your choices if you wish to get an international experience? And today, I think Griffith will then take on from there to talk to you about what if you choose Griffith as one of the partner schools that you wish to transfer to. Okay, so let's start off with dietetics in Malaysia. So what you see here is a photograph that was taken and produced by a video by the Malaysian Dietitians Association. So if you wish to know and view this video, it's a bit lengthy, so I don't have time to show it to you here. So that's the YouTube link that you can go in. If you type Malaysian Dietitians Association under YouTube, you'll be able to see this video. Now, this is actually an image of a dietitian that sometimes I feel people don't really am aware of. Because really dietitians are very clinical in Malaysia, and a lot of people think dietitians mainly talk about healthy eating. We produce recipe cookbooks, we learn how to cook healthily. Yeah, that's also true. But at the same time, we're actually also a very clinical and evidence-based profession. So if you look at illness and wellness, in a person's life, right, we can, of course, most of us would like to go into this green and blue area where it's about being healthy, being well, okay? And we have different levels of being healthy and well. So, and at the same time, you can also go into, having diseases. And we know now in Malaysia, more and more people are falling into this paradigm of having at least one chronic disease, be it high blood pressure or obesity or diabetes, and that seems to be on the rise very much so. So this is where these are lifestyle-related diseases, and there are two professions in the country that actually are well trained to look into the wellness continuum and also the disease continuum, and this is dietitians and nutritionists. Now, in other countries, dietetics and nutrition may be seen as a seamless one profession, but in Malaysia, it's registered as two different professions. So if you wish to consider, career related to this, you can either look at becoming nutritionists or becoming dietitians. So if you're looking at nutritionists, then you would be focusing a lot more on preventive and health promotion, and you work mostly with healthy population. But if you want to consider dietetics, then you'll be looking at both therapeutic as well as preventive. So you will be focusing more on the clinical care of patients and the prevention of disease and its complication. And you will be working with people with medical conditions. So as a dietitian, that's what I do. I will talk a little bit about the preventive and health, but at the same time, a lot of my time is spent on the therapeutic and the preventive. So a dietitian in Malaysia, the Malaysian Allied Health Profession Council, which Kani alluded to just now, which I represent the dietetic profession in this council, we have come up with a definition of who is a dietitian in Malaysia. Now, the definition is very important because this is how we then know who do we regulate as dietitians in this country. So we have come up with this definition, which is also aligned with what is globally defined as who a dietitian is. So number one, we assess, we diagnose, and we treat dietary problems using what we call medical nutrition therapy. So what is medical nutrition therapy? It's where it is a science, actually. So it's a science where we are able to, it's evidence-based, so we translate that information into nutrition, health, and disease so that we can help our clients to make practical guidance, practical changes to their lifestyle and their food choices so that they can manage their disease conditions and promote health. But at the same time, dietitians are also very well trained to look at the provision of safe and nutritious foods. So in many organizations and many institutions, including hospitals, where the therapeutic diets are being prepared for patients, we need to have the dietitian to be in charge there. So the dietitian would be the head of department when it comes to the provision of safe and nutritious food as well. So then if we look into then what does a dietitian do? So first of all, we concentrate on nutrition care for patients with multiple medical conditions. So we will assess, we do nutrition assessment, we will diagnose the nutrition problems, and we will plan the intervention. And our intervention is not based on drugs. We work alongside the doctors, the pharmacists, the other healthcare professional, but our key role will be to plan that intervention using food and nutrients. The other thing that we do as a dietitian is we focus on individual and self-management of the patient. So we will take into consideration the personal situation of the individual. We will help the individual to set achievable goals of what they want to change in their life, particularly in terms of their eating behavior. We will look into also motivating the patient to adopt this new eating behavior so that in the long run, they'll be able to achieve good health. And we empower them to make informed decisions for themselves. So there's a lot of things that we do beyond just giving advice about how to choose and eat healthy foods. So you'll be trained in how do you do that? How do you change that conversation with your patient, and to give options and solutions to our patients to be able to adopt a healthier lifestyle, and particularly eating behavior related. Finally, I just want to say that actually the treatment by a dietitian cannot be substituted with advice from other healthcare providers. Yes, we know that in the general public, you get dietary advice from so many other people. You may also get dietary advice from doctors, from nurses, from other people who are not trained as dietitians. But what we do know is that because of the amount of time, a 4-year degree that we actually spend our time on, and even postgraduate studies that we do to make ourselves more effective, there are a lot of evidence to show that if you want to know more about diet and lifestyle and you see a dietitian, it's going to be more effective in terms of the treatment outcomes as compared to if you see a non-dietitian. I think this is something that we need to continue to communicate out there to let the public know that if you really want to make a significant change into your diet and lifestyle and make yourself healthier and able to manage your disease better, you need to see a dietitian. So then as a dietitian, where do we work? So actually, if you look at this, I see that this is a very busy slide, but really there's so many areas you can work. I always tell my students, as long as people need to eat, you will have a job. And people are becoming more and more aware about what kind of food are we putting into our stomach, right? And therefore you need that expertise from a dietitian. So of course, I've color-coded this a little bit. So if you look at the pink areas, these are very clinical areas. So we work in hospitals, in clinics, in healthcare facilities. What do? We prescribe, we diagnose, we prescribe, we educate patients about diet and nutrition, and we administer the medical condition therapy as part of the healthcare team. So we work together with other healthcare professionals. We can work as private practice, as entrepreneurs. In fact, I see a lot of young dietitians now are becoming entrepreneurs in Malaysia, something that I never thought would happen when I graduated about 30 years ago. But now more and more young people are coming together to form their own companies and provide MNT services to their clients. And they use a range of platforms, conventionally, where they meet face-to-face, go to the homes. They use a lot of digital platforms, and they use the social media as well. So I think for young people who are thinking about, I want to make a difference in someone's life and I want to use my expertise, and I'm interested in food and diet, then yes, by all means, choose dietetics, because this is something you can really do. Now, you can also work in the community setting, so you don't necessarily have to work in a hospital setting. So in the community setting, you can be educating the public about diet nutrition, and you can still do MNT within that setting, right? I see a lot of dietitians now public having access to dietitian in retail pharmacies. So quite often large pharmacies like the Alpro pharmacy, for example, I think, and the bigger pharmacies, they do have dietitians there. So that's a great way, because now dietitians is in the forefront of public health, right? Sports nutrition corporate wellness organization, if you're interested in that, they hire dietitians as well. What would you be doing? You'll be educating your clients about the connection between food, fitness, and also health. Of course, like me, I choose to stay in the university, although I still run a practice at least once a week, where I'm actually teaching students and also about, about food, about nutrition, and about dietetics. And I do a lot of research, so you can do the same as well. You can either do it in the university, even dietitians in hospitals participate in research. So there are lots of things that you can do there, or you can even join the industry and concentrate on dietetic research over there as a research dietitian. Now, of course, in the industry, food and nutrition related business and industry, they do hire dietitians. So they need dietitians to look at communications, at consumer affairs, at public relations, marketing, product development, even consultation with chefs so that they come up with recipes for the particular products that they produce, right? So they will need dietitian skills over there. And of course, we have a lot of our graduates who also work as food service dietitians, because they love food service operations. They like to manage that. So we have dietitians who work in schools, in hospitals, in workplaces, where they oversee the production of food and healthy food for staff, as well as for therapeutic diets. So there's a lot of things that you can do if you have a dietetic degree. Depends on it's actually really up to your own imagination where you want to apply your skills in. So this is again another busy slide. It's just to tell you that, look, we have been producing dietitians in INU for the past 12, I think it's almost since 2008, right? And 98% of our graduates are employed within 1 year. And if you look at it, they work in hospitals, they work in food service, they work in the fitness industry, they work in the community setting, they work with businesses, they work in food businesses, they work on the digital space as well. And I'm very proud to tell you that recently, Malaysian Dietitians Association has actually given 2 awards on what we call Rising Star Award for young dietitians who are building their careers. And both of these Rising Star Awards are actually given to IMU students, IMU alumni. So you can see that with the training that you get in IMU, there's a lot of things that you can actually achieve. IMU graduates have also worked overseas as well. So we have dietitians who work in Singapore, who come from IMU, in Brunei, and also in other countries. So basically, if you choose to become a dietitian after your training, what are your daily activities like? So you'll be spending your time in the day providing outpatient and inpatient dietetics care. You will get involved in menu planning and therapeutic diets. In many hospitals in Malaysia, the dietitian is working alongside with the chef or with the food service manager to ensure that the provision of food to the patients is properly according to standards and according to their clinical needs. You will be involved in a lot of public education. So it'd be nice if you like talking to people, if you like presenting and sharing knowledge, then this is a good profession for you to be in. As I said, dietitians get involved in research as well. You conduct a lot of training. The training can be for food service workers. The training can be for the public. The training can be for doctors, for nurses, to train them about how dietetics or diet and nutrition play an important role in the recovery of patients. And as dietitians, we must always keep up to date because, as you know, nutrition science evolved so much over time. You know, the science is very rapid. So we must make sure that we are evidence-based. So we do attend a lot of training, a lot of conferences, and a lot of seminars in order to make sure that we are updated in our care that we give to our patients. So again, I won't go into that, but research is very much important, and research actually underpins the quality of care that we give to our clients. We only give advice that is evidence-based. Some of us collect data during practice because we are involved in research projects. And a lot of these research outcomes are translated into practice. So Dr. Kani earlier mentioned that I sit a lot on committees. So I sit on the Clinical Practice Guideline Committee alongside with the doctors in terms of developing what should we say about diet and diabetes, for example. And this is all based on evidence and research that has been done. And how did I get there? Is, of course, I pursued postgraduate degrees. So if you're ambitious and you think with dietetics degree, can I do postgraduate? You definitely can do postgraduate. You can go as far as PhD if you want. But let's get back to the realities. That is, what is the salary and job outlook like? Now, if you Google, you'll find that very, very recently, just about 2 weeks ago, I think, the Ministry of Health had actually gotten a big headline in the news to say that our countries need more dietitians. We need more dietitians in the Ministry of Health. And there has been also a lot of reports coming out now that Malaysia is in serious need of dietitians. And the reason is because chronic disease is on the rise. So whether it's the public or private sector, people are much more aware. You know, when I first came out, the only place to work as a dietitian is in the hospital, and it's very limited. Right now, the sky is the limit. There's no limit that you must only work in hospital. In every facet of our life as Malaysians, everyone's interested in diet. Everybody needs to have some change in their lifestyle. So then the dietitian is very much needed. Now, the entry-level dietitian, if you Google, I think recently there has been a database that people key in what their salaries are like. And for dietitians, the base salary is around 2,800 to 3,000. So this is very similar with other healthcare professionals as well, with an entry level. That means you just graduated with the first degree. Now, of course, salaries will increase with the years of experience. And if you hold managerial positions, you easily you earn about 8,000 to 10,000 and more, right? Depending on your years of experience. Okay, so really, you're not going to be poor as a dietitian. You live pretty well as a dietitian. And the ratio of dietitians to patients at the moment is very low. So what the Ministry of Health has put out is that they aim to have at least for every one patient, there's one dietitian to every 10 patients. At the moment now, we are at one dietitian to every 33 patients. So you can imagine the room for growth for dietitians, and the employability of dietitians will go up. Registration. Now, this is another major milestone in our profession. I have been in this profession for more than 20 years. And I tell you, from the day when I was a student, we talked about registration. I'm very happy that I'm now able to contribute to making that come true. And I hope that, to be a registered dietitian in Malaysia before I retire. So the registration is actually with the Malaysian Allied Health Profession Council. From this year onwards, in order for us to practice as a dietitian, we need to be licensed. So we need to have practicing certificate. We must meet certain hours of continuous professional development, and we must follow a very strict code of ethics and professional conduct. So all this is currently being rolled out already. So as a dietitian, you need, the whole purpose of this is to raise the standards of practice and professionalism for us, not only for dietitians, but it's alongside with 15 other allied healthcare professionals, right? Now, employers now need to make sure that they only hire registered professionals, okay? And all of this is, of course, to safeguard public safety. So recently, the Tan Sri DG has actually announced that the allied health services will now kickstart, and it's going to list 16 allied health professionals to be regulated, and that will include the dietitian. So now, if I've convinced you enough that, okay, this looks like a pretty good career that I want to start on, or you're already registered to be a dietitian, then if you choose IMU as the place to study, what difference is that going to make? So essentially, I was the very few pioneers who started the dietetics degree here in IMU, alongside with a few of my other colleagues, but I think I stayed on the longest. So there are three things that we really emphasize when you study in IMU. Number one, it's the curriculum. The curriculum has to be progressive. The curriculum has to be something that will ensure that our graduates stay relevant when they go out to work and can upgrade the standard of dietetics in the country. Number two, they're definitely work ready and they have high employability. As I showed you just now, right now, when we first started graduating our first batch of students, we were a bit apprehensive. Are they going to be, employable? And you know what? The very first graduate already was employed by Ministry of Health. So that tells us that the quality is already there. And now if you turn around, you go to all these places, if you meet a dietitian, very likely you're going to see someone that comes from IMU. And the third thing is that we've got experienced and renowned faculty. And that is, again, a very important point. That's one of the key essence of ensuring that you are well trained if you choose to do dietetics in IMU. Now, as a student, it's about real world experience, because you have to have that exposure very early in your studies with us. So you can see that right from year one, you're already taken on to learn about food culture. You learn about foods through supermarket tours that we do. You get direct access with the community already. So you learn how to assess people for their nutrition status. What kind of diets are they eating? You do a lot of health promotion projects as well. Then we will teach you about therapeutic diets, because it's quite important that you know how to modify diets that's suitable for someone with kidney disease, or someone with diabetes, or somebody who has a stroke and is unable to eat normal food. Then what do you do? Then as you move into the higher years, you are going to start going more clinical into your dietetic skills, and we'll end off the four-year program with your internship. And in your internship, you will do both a bit of food service, a lot of community dietetics, and of course the clinical. So in Malaysia, you need to do about 1,200 hours of internship in order to qualify you as a dietitian. So these are some of the things that we've also done. We expose you to professional chefs. We work with, I think this is actually a chef from Nestle. And our students actually develop recipes for Nestle, and it was put onto their website. You learn about being an entrepreneur as well. So we invite guest lecturers to come in and share with you, how do you become an entrepreneur? How do you start your own business and provide your own private practice as a dietitian? We use a lot of technology as well into our training. And you can see here, these are our students. We have simulated learning. And at the same time, we have teledietetics consult. So our students you can see here, is actually consulting a patient online, which is the current technology now, and teaching them about how do they change their diets. Now, our curriculum is also very international, hence our partnership with Griffith. It's there. And we will be exchanging expertise between us and our partner schools. And here you can see here we have international faculty coming in to train our faculty as well as our students about new techniques into looking at examination skills for nutrition status that's done by dietitians. Now, in the final year, you will have about 4 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's about 4 weeks that you're actually encouraged to go anywhere in the world so that you can experience what dietetics is like in those countries. So I think we have been doing this since the day we started, except recently due to COVID. But even with COVID, we had virtual internship that was done. But I think now that borders are opening up, students can now go back to do their overseas experience and internship with Dietetics. Here we show you photos of where our students have actually gone to Taiwan. They've been to also, you know, a lot more other countries that they can expose to how dietetics is being practiced over there. Right, and of course, this is the faculty. You'll be taught by one of the largest faculty in nutrition and dietetics in the country. All of us are experienced collectively. I think we have more than 100 years of experience, at least 25 years in teaching and practice. We all hold, you know, important positions in the country in shaping the profession. We all do research. We have lots of publication, and we have a lot of networking as well. So what we bring to you then is all these experiences to ensure that you're well set. And you will continue this work when you have graduated and continue to bring that profession to a higher level. And opportunities for postgraduate studies. Now, if you join IMU in dietetics, you can choose to do the local program, right, which will be registrable, or you can do it together with our partner universities. So you spend about 50% of your time with us and another 50% with our overseas partner universities. And all of these are still also registrable in Malaysia. So we have got 2 partners now in Australia, and very happy to welcome our new partner, which is Griffith University, and a very long-term good friend of mine, Professor Lauren Williams. You'll meet her afterwards, where she'll tell you about what she's been doing, the good work that they've been doing, Griffith University. I've visited the university recently, just came back from last week, and I tell you, I think if you have an opportunity to go, you should go, because you're going to enjoy your studies over there. We also have a master's degree partner if you're interested. That means if you finish with us after 4 years and you wish to continue on to your master's program, then we have a partner with Rutgers State University in the States, in the United States, where it's a master's of science in clinical nutrition, and that also qualifies you to do the RD exam in the US. And I'm sure I'll leave you now to let Griffith University talk to you about their program if you're considering joining us. So either the local program or the partner school program. Yeah, I think that's all, Kani. I finished my presentation, so I hope that has been enlightening, and I'll take any questions if there is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Winnie, for giving us the clear picture on what is career in dietetics in Malaysia. I often remember our conversation on how rewarding our profession is, Prof, especially when we see the smile in the patients when they finish the consultation with us.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, and as what you said, Prof, as long as people need to eat, we will have a career in dietetics.
Yeah, we should have a job.
Yes. All right. So thank you, Prof. I don't see any questions for you here.
Sure.
All right.
No
So
problem.
thank you very much for your presentation. All right. So we will move on to our next session. I have the pleasure of introducing Prof. Lauren Williams. Prof. Lauren Williams is Professor of Nutrition and Dietetics at Griffith University on the Gold Coast, and she's a Fellow of Dietitians Australia. She has vast experience, over 30 years experience as academic dietitian and 35 years as a dietitian. She has been recently awarded the prestigious Barbara Chester Memorial Award for her services in dietetics. She sits in a lot of academic committees and also in a lot of committees that look into nutrition and dietetics. She currently holds the honorary professional appointments with her former faculties in the University of Canberra and University of Newcastle. Currently, she is the professor in the Nutrition and Dietetics in Griffith University. So Prof. William has published extensively. She has a lot of books, book chapters, and over 110 journal articles. She leads the Healthy Primary Care Research Team at Griffith University. She's no stranger to IMU. She has come and visit us many times in IMU. She is also the founding member of Council of Deans of Nutrition and Dietetics for Australia and New Zealand, and chairs the Nutrition and Dietetic Education and Accreditation Network for the Council. Right? So without further ado, I would like to welcome Prof. Lauren Williams. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Kani, and hello, everybody. Lovely to be here talking to you this afternoon, and thanks, Prof. Winnie, for your very kind words. I am I've been a proud dietitian for 36 years, so I'm obviously very biased in thinking that it is a great profession, and I think you would be very fortunate to study dietetics at IMU. As Prof Winnie said, I've been a long friend of IMU, and I've been honoured to visit Malaysia and to visit IMU several times over the past decade. And I think it's very interesting, even though our two countries are quite different in lots of ways, the role of dietitians is very similar, as you'll see in my presentation this afternoon. If I could have the next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm going to talk to you about dietetics in Australia. If you select that option, what can you expect? So our definition of what is a dietitian is very similar to that Prof Winnie put up about the definition in Australia. So a dietitian is considered to be a professional who applies the science of food and nutrition in promoting health, preventing and treating disease in order to optimise health of individuals, groups, communities and whole populations. And in Australia, we have both dietitians and nutritionists. And if you graduate from our program, so if you do the last 2 years of your degree in Australia, you will graduate with the accredited practicing dietitian and accredited nutritionist. There's often a lot of confusion between what is a nutritionist and what is a dietitian. In Australia, a dietitian is both a nutritionist and a dietitian, but there are some people who are nutritionists but not dietitians, and they legally are not able to give the medical nutrition therapy advice that Prof Winnie was talking about earlier. Next slide, thanks. So what work does a dietitian do in Australia? Just that, next slide, thank you. Again, very similar. I was looking at Prof Winnie's headings and it's very similar. So a lot of our graduates go and work in patient care. The vast majority actually, whether that is in a hospital setting or in primary care, either working through a community health centre or through a private practice or larger practices with doctors as well. And on the right hand side, that's one of our graduates, Heidi. The hospitals in Queensland where we are located have new graduate positions in each of the hospitals, and Heidi was a successful applicant for one of those new graduate positions. Our graduates do very well in obtaining those positions. Next slide, thanks. Of course, another important role, as also Prof Winnie was saying, was in food service. And of course, food services in hospital is very important. If you've ever been in hospital and realised that you need to eat the hospital food, you know how important it is for it to be nutritious as well as tasty. In Australia at the moment, we have a very strong emphasis on our aged care facilities. There's just been a big government inquiry into the fact that the food service, the nutrition of people that live in aged care facilities is probably not up to the standard that it should be. So there's a big role for dietitians in Australia to work in that area. And there's other areas of employment as well. And on that right-hand side, that's one of our graduates who works for the Jamie Oliver's Ministry of Food, promoting cooking skills out in the community so that people can eat better. Next slide, thanks. So my particular area, again, here's my bias, is I'm a community and public health nutritionist. So I work with communities to try to keep them healthy. A lot of our work in Australia, particularly in Queensland, our emphasis is on working with Indigenous communities who don't enjoy the same level of good health as non-Indigenous Australians. So a lot of these are our students that have been out on placement in remote communities, learning a lot about working with Indigenous communities. But you can also work with non-government agencies or community health agencies promoting health. My main area prior to joining the university was in childcare and trying to have healthy food systems in the childcare setting. Next slide, thanks. Other areas, and again, Prof Winnie mentioned food industry, and the role of dietitians in food industry in Australia is very important, both in trying to ensure that there are healthy options in products, but also in ensuring that products meet safety regulations and educating the consumers. As well, there's the job that me and my team do, which is in research teaching, and we also have a role at the university in educating the general public, both through making media appearances or writing for the public. And increasingly, our graduates are taking on the role of influencers and writing online blogs, for example, to educate the public in all new media. This is a graph about, we did a study following up where all our graduates went in 2017, and we found that 93% of them were employed within just 6 months. And if you see by this, the blue on the left-hand side, they're the people that worked in a private practice setting. The blue on the right-hand side was those that were employed in hospital. So all those dietitians are doing medical nutrition therapy. The ones in green went into public health, the sort of jobs I was talking about in the community, and the purple is in industry. So in terms of the money that you can earn, when you work in a public hospital, for example, full-time, that's 65,000 Australian dollars as a starting salary, which is about 200,000 Malaysian ringgits. That's misspelled there, but never mind. You get the idea. But the cost of living, the cost is higher too. When you work for industry, so when you work in private practice, you can charge whatever you like. There aren't standards, so you can definitely make more money if you work in private practice than if you work for the government. I also wanted to, just before I hand over to Lana, I also wanted to mention that our graduates, Australian graduates, are very well regarded all around the world, and Australian trained dietitians do work all over the world. We have mutual recognition with New Zealand. That means you don't have to do any sort of exam, extra qualifications to go and work in New Zealand, and in the province of Ontario in Canada. So only that particular province. If other provinces you need to do an exam. But because Australian graduated dietitians are very well regarded, they're usually highly sought after in countries like the UK and also countries in Europe. So and then you just need to do whatever exam that those countries require. Of course, you're fine to work anywhere you like in Australia because you would graduate as an accredited practicing dietitian, and Lana will talk to you further about those qualifications in a moment. But that was me. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Lauren. It's nice to see the similarities in our careers, both in Malaysia and also Australia. It's indeed a very versatile career, I would say. So thank you for that. And we'll move on to the next speaker. I would like to introduce her. She is Dr. Lana Mitchell. She is the Program Director of Bachelor of Nutrition and Dietetics and Bachelor of Nutrition Dietetics with Honours degree in Griffith University. She is an advanced accredited practicing dietitian and a senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy. Dr. Lana is very passionate about improving systems, processes, and making differences in people's life. She completed her PhD in 2010, focusing on improving delivery of nutrition advice in general practice. She has published book chapters, and also she has over 31 journal articles which focuses on qualitative and quantitative methods on improving delivery of nutrition advice in primary care setting. She also has extensive experience in student education, focusing on developing practice-ready dietitians. Dr. Lana also coordinates a variety of learning and teaching projects aiming at improving student learning and their employability. She is also a member of DAA QLD Engagement and Development Committee. So without further ado, I'll pass the floor to Dr. Lana.
Thank you for that lovely welcome and for the opportunity to present today on our Nutrition and Dietetics program at Griffith University. Before I jump into this video, I just want to, this video gives an overview of Griffith Health, which is where our Bachelor of Nutrition and Dietetics fits. So I hope you enjoy the video, which is only a very short one.
Looking for a career you can feel good about? Welcome to Health at Griffith University. Welcome to a community of people who genuinely care. People who understand that better patient outcomes happen when specialists work together. At Griffith Health, you'll learn as a team with support from expert teachers, hands-on practical experience and state-of-the-art facilities. With over 100 health degrees, you'll graduate in demand, ready to take your place in Australia's fastest growing industry. Welcome to Health at Griffith. Looking.
So our Bachelor of Nutrition and Dietetics fits within the health program. We have a structure here at Griffith, which is a 4-year degree, where the first 3 years are based on campus at Griffith, and obviously our students who transfer from IMU come in at that time point. Then we have our 4th year of our degree, which is very much based on placement. So we have 22 weeks in the field, and this picture down the bottom is one of our placement locations. It's actually our hospital facilities that are across the road from our building that you see on the left here at Griffith University. So we are an accredited program with the Dietitians Australia, and we abide by the accreditation standards for dietetic education programs, as well as making sure our curriculum meets the national competency standards for dietitians in Australia. So when our students graduate, as Lauren indicated, they're accredited practicing dietitians and accredited nutritionists. And this is our facilities here at Griffith. The building on the left is the one I'm currently in, and where nutrition and dietetics is based. We have a food lab, which is set up with our students do their food lab coursework and cooking experiences in there. We've also got Griffith Health Clinic, which is based in this same building. It's level 4, where dietetics is just one of the facilities that and clinics that are offered as part of that building, and simulation rooms, which is the picture on the right, which is students throughout the degree, but mainly in 3rd year of the degree when IMU students join a range of simulation experiences that are in this purpose-built space. So fantastic facilities as part of this building. We also have a range of expert teachers and researchers. So 14 key staff who do teaching and research as part of their day-to-day world that all teach into this program. The next few slides provide an overview of our Bachelor of Nutrition and Dietetics, and then I'll talk about the honours pathway as well. So the first 2 years of our program is very much science and some nutrition courses, with year 3 being where the dietetics element is really strong, and we learn more about the dietetics. Year 4, as I said before, is our placement, so almost 6 months of placement, coupled with either electives or honours. I really want to focus on 3rd year because this is where our students from IMU join us. We have a range of different dietetics courses, so medical nutrition therapy, nutrition education and food service management in trimester 1 are all taught by our nutrition and dietetics team. In trimester 2, we go on and do community and public health nutrition, building on our medical nutrition therapy as well. And my favourite course, because I teach it, is the communication and counselling in dietetics. In our year 4 of our degree, where I mentioned that there's most of our placement sits, we have medical nutrition therapy placements, which are in the hospitals, and that's for 11 weeks throughout that final year. We have community and public health nutrition placements, which are all over different settings, mostly in community and public health nutrition settings. We range all over Australia. So Australia is a large place. Mostly these are in Queensland, but we also have some up in the Northern Territory. So a really good experience for our students to be able to get a breadth of experience there. And also we do food service management placements, which are mostly in the hospital as well as aged care centres, all coming together to allow our students to demonstrate their ability to work as dietitians. As I mentioned before, we also have an honours degree pathway. So rather than enrolling in this to start with, we have students transfer into the honours pathway at the end of year 3 if they're able to maintain an adequately high GPA. So that's a competitive process, and we have a range of different honours projects that are offered each year that students can elect to join up to. So this is offered in the first half of our 4th year of the degree, and then followed by the placement experience. These next 2 slides highlight the articulation arrangement that we have with IMU. So students will do their first 2 years in Malaysia, and then the preferred pathway is to come into trimester 2, which will be your year 1, and do our needs assessment course as well as some electives. The middle row is our what we call year 3, where most of our students, you'll be joining our year 3 students, and that is similar to the courses that I highlighted previously. And then the final year will be our placement for the first 6 months of the degree, graduating in July. An alternate pathway is if you come into trimester 1, the coursework will be the same for year 3. And this is the pathway you would choose if you wanted to do the honours pathway as well. So what is placement? It's really the opportunity to put theory into practice. So while we have a range of shorter placements throughout the degree, we call them work integrated learning. We have a range of interprofessional learning experiences, which are simulation based, as well as aged care facilities. Placement in final year is where students are immersed in the community, in the hospitals, and are able to really learn what it means to be a dietitian and feel confident in that area. So this is full time, and as you can see from the photos that Lauren's already talked to, in a range of different settings. So these are in hospitals and outpatients when you're in the role of a clinical dietitian. Food service are in hospitals and nursing homes, and community and public health nutrition can be anywhere. So these can range from local centres to childcare centres. We've done lots of different experiences there, which these photos indicate. Placement, our students find is a challenging, but also a rewarding and fun opportunity to really feel like they've made that way as a dietitian. This slide here, which goes for 3 minutes, is a video of our, what we call CLIMBS. It's clinical immersion in medical scenario and a simulation. And it gives an indication of the types of experiences that students are exposed to in year 3 of the program.
So CLIMBS is clinical learning through extended immersion in medical simulation. The idea is that we're taking students who are about to go into practice but haven't really had the experience yet of making their own decisions and learning by those decisions, seeing what happens. Obviously you can't do that in a real clinical setting because that would put patients at risk. So what we do is create an extended immersion. The medical students work in teams of 5 or so. We make one of them the registrar, the leader of the medical team, and the rest of them are interns, and they manage a patient, one patient in the 3rd year version of CLIMBS and multiple patients in the 4th year version of CLIMBS. They manage that patient all the way through their hospital admission. At the right times during the clinical story, we have students from other professions rotating into that scenario, joining the medical team in the way they would in a real hospital to contribute to that patient's care. And then we break the simulation and have the students from the different disciplines talking to each other about their own approaches to the patient and how they make it all work in a real clinical setting.
We have a number of students coming through from our nursing program, ranging from second to third years, and they're being involved in the simulated training here, which is working amazingly well for, I think, the medical students and the nursing students.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience. It's quite confronting when you've got, a parent coming who's obviously quite distraught, and they're having to, try and pump you for information, for their child to make sure that they're obviously going to hopefully pull through the surgery or whatever the scenario is.
I've never been put into that situation before, so it's really good to see what a doctor's point of view is like, and you're also trying to think, what can I do to calm this patient down, or what words can help them. So it's sort of, you've got a million and one things going through your head, and you just it's just such a good learning experience to find out how would I react in that situation.
I found him to be very helpful, and he was very professional, I think. Never realized that other people who work in the hospitals, they might have different terminology.
So we gotta learn how to explain it, not the way that they're taught, but in a way that other people can understand too.
To be honest, it was extremely nerve-wracking. This is the first time we've had any kind of patient interaction, and also with any other discipline. So it was very interesting to see the speech pathologist aspect and to see how that incorporates with us, how to work together.
CLIMBS is a unique program. It gives health professional students the opportunity to experience life as a real practitioner over an extended period. They work in interprofessional teams to optimise the healthcare outcomes for their patients and clients.
Thank you for the opportunity to present on our program. Now I'm going to hand over to Dr. Rati Jani, who's going to present on her experience studying dietetics in Australia and working across countries.
Thank you, Dr. Lana, for the interesting talk on studying in Griffith. Okay, all right. So our next session, we will have Dr. Rati Jani. Let me introduce her. Dr. Rati is a senior lecturer in nutrition and dietetics and is an advanced APD with the Dietitians Australia. She's registered as fellow with the Higher Education Academy UK. She completed her dietetics degree from Griffith University, followed by her PhD studies in Queensland University of Technology. She is currently leading the multicentric project, Picky Eating Project in Australia, India and Malaysia, whereby she is examining the environmental and phenotypic determinants of picky eaters in children and also in adults. She is an adjunct assistant professor at University of Canberra and invited guest lecturer in the Nantian Institute, Wollongong. She is also reviewer of the National Veg Kit Registry funded by Horticulture Australia, evaluating the intervention of promoting vegetable intake in children. Dr. Jani has published over 25 peer-review articles and presented more than 25 abstracts at both national and international conferences. So let's welcome Dr. Rati Jani.
Thank you, Kani, and thank you for your kind introduction.
Okay, Rati, I know you have worked in various countries all over the world. Can you just share with us about your work experience in these countries and what you did, and some stories perhaps on your career as a dietitian?
Sure. Yes, Kani, I would love to. If I can move on to the next slide, Lana. Thank you. So, Kani, my career began with my studies at Griffith University. This was my first time coming out of India, where I originally am from, and studying at Griffith. Studying at Griffith gave me the biggest opportunity of my life, which is being registered as a dietitian with Dietitian Australia. And this opened further doors. Because I was a registered dietitian, I could then go on and apply as a stronger candidate for my PhD studies at Queensland University of Technology. And simultaneously, I also had the opportunity to work as a clinical dietitian in the Royal Brisbane Women's Hospital. So yes, a pioneer being Griffith for opening the doors for me. And after a PhD, I had two cards in my plate, which is being a registered dietitian and having a doctorate degree. This opened the world map for me to go and practice further, which I can share in my next slide. So yes, Kani, after my doctorate degree and having a registered dietitian status, I first went to India, my home country, where I devoted 2 years as a postdoctoral researcher. And I also was practicing as a private practicing dietitian in Mumbai. After which I had an opportunity to go to Atlanta, United States as a fellow and work over there for 1.5 years in the area of genetic metabolic nutrition as a postdoc. After which this opened the roads back to come into Australia. And I did my postdoctorate at Western Sydney University, and I was also a research dietitian over there. I predominantly worked in the field of type 2 diabetes, management and prevention. So it had both clinical and community aspects. This led to a tenure track position at University of Canberra. So I then started my work at University of Canberra, where I was teaching and I was also doing my research. And this is where I embedded the seeds of the Picky Eating Project. And I had the wonderful opportunity to collaborate with International Medical University of Malaysia with YU, and the collaboration is strong and we are still going ahead with multiple projects with YU, which is fantastic that I get to collaborate with such a fantastic university like yourselves. And this then opened further door, which is, I feel like I have come back home now, which is I have come back to Griffith University as a senior lecturer, and I can continue my academic journey. But in this process as a academic dietitian, Kani, I also had the opportunity to work on various international projects, which were affiliated with Tonga in the area of type 2 diabetes, also in the also with Auckland, New Zealand, where we worked with the Maori community in the area of type 2 diabetes. So yes, overall, this has been a fulfilling experience, but the doors would not have opened if I didn't make the decision of coming to Griffith and commencing my studies over here as a dietitian.
Okay, nice, Rati, to know that you started in Griffith and now you're continually progressing in your career in Griffith itself. But Rati, why dietetics of all the careers? Why did you choose dietetics?
So, Kani, let me share with you from a student point of view. So when I was a student, when I was an undergraduate student, the subjects that were the ones which I used to love were biology, physiology, chemistry. And yes, these are excellent basic sciences, but I wanted to learn the clinical application of these units, of these subjects. And when I was exposed to dietetics, when I had attended a similar seminar like yourselves, which you're presenting, I found this to be a good fit where I can use all of my basic sciences and apply it into clinical practice. So this was my inspiration behind joining dietetics as a student. Why did I make it my career? So let me share with you one little thing which Professor William had told to our students at Griffith University during orientation is that when you are an academic dietitian, you not only influence the life of one person, but you influence 30 to 40 students and you shape their life positively in the right direction. And this is why I became an academic dietitian, Kani, because of my love for teaching, and now I can, because of all the experience that I have gained in these various countries, I can bring this in my classroom and I can make this an even enriching experience. So yes, I finally chose to become an academic dietitian because I love to teach and I love to teach nutrition and I love to shape young minds and see them become stronger dietitians in the future.
I can really see your passion, Rati. I think being dietitian is about making a difference, whether it's at individual level, community level, and as you said, being an academic dietitian, we really can touch more lives. Okay, so Rati, can you share with us a moment or a story which made you realize, now this is the right career for me?
Yes, sure, Kani, there's a story which is very dear to my heart. So, Kani, this happened 2 years back when I attended the Dietitian Australia conference. And this was surprisingly in Gold Coast, the destiny telling me to come back to Griffith. So the conference, the Dietitian Australia conference, which was in Gold Coast, there were a student suddenly walked up to me, a fellow colleague dietitian, I should say now, and she started thanking me that I had taught her 10 years back in one of her nutrition subjects long time ago. At that time, nutrition was only an elective for her. She was studying some other degree. But the way I had taught her inspired her to change her degree and to become a dietitian, because she could see the value in becoming a dietitian, where we do lots of hands-on practice and we make direct changes and support people's life in a positive manner. And she said that I played a pioneer role in supporting her to decide her career choice. And now she is a practicing dietitian, and she's also commenced her PhD studies. So it's very fulfilling to know that your student has chosen a career and that you have been able to make a positive contribution in their life. So this is a moment that I'll always remember, because we teach so many students, we may not remember every phase, but if you can make a positive contribution and they remember you in return, that's very heartwarming at the end.
That's a very nice story, Rati. Thanks for sharing with us that story. Yeah, it's very, very rewarding when we see, people coming up and telling you how you made a difference in their life. Okay, I see that you have worked in various countries, Rati. We know sometimes practices can differ between these countries. So was it easy or was it difficult for you to work in these different countries? And are there any similarities and differences in the career of dietetics in these countries?
Sure, Kani. So, Kani, I have to admit that when I went to the US, working not working in the metric, but the imperial system was such a challenge, understanding the ounce and pounds. So, yes, that was quite challenging. But that jokes apart. But what I saw, Kani, is that the underlying principles are very consistent when we work across borders as well. For instance, as an academic dietitian and as a clinical dietitian, what I have seen is that the what Professor Chee was saying, which is the emphasis on using the latest evidence and the high quality practice in your research, training, and service, this remains consistent irrespective of the borders. There are certain things which definitely are very different, Kani, when we are working in a developing versus a developed country. So allow me to share with you a quick example. When I was working as a clinical dietitian in India, so this was for a government-funded hospital in India, which is not very adequately funded. So for instance, Kani, as you will appreciate that in a developed country, we have lots of feeds and medical formulas at our disposal to support our patients. But for example, working as a clinical dietitian in India, we used to make our own enteral feed, and we used to see if they are going through the consistency is okay for it to go through the nasogastric tube, and if it would be favorable for the patient. So these are the, when you go on to the grassroots level, there were lots of differences where you have to adapt your practice in the resources which are there, which are available to you, and you have to make best of the situations which is possible. So I think this is useful. I would strongly encourage students, if their opportunity permits, it is a valuable experience to work across borders, because it really makes you a holistic, well-rounded person, not just professionally, but it also makes you a positive person personally, because you have experienced so many different scenarios in your professional life. So yes, these are the kind of similarities and differences that I could see.
All right. Thanks, Rati. So I think it's very interesting, even, during internship, like in our IMU dietetics program, I'm sure similar with Griffith University, the students being posted in various hospitals, whereby they meet different communities. So that prepares them well ahead for the different types of communities they're going to see as a practicing dietitian. Okay. All right, Rati. Now, we have a group of students, people who are thinking about choosing this career of dietetics. So what advice would you give them about, being a dietitian?
So, Kani, my number one advice would be something which an advice that I received from my PhD supervisor when I was graduating as a doctorate candidate is that do not give up on any job opportunity that you get as a new grad dietitian. Meaning, as Professor Chee said, you may want to be an amazing renal dietitian or a diabetes dietitian in the future, which is fantastic. But for instance, as a new grad dietitian, if you get an opportunity to work in the hospitality sector or food industry sector, do not give up on these valuable experiences, because you never know how these experiences change your further trajectory in life. Maybe your goals may change, or maybe you gain some experience out of this, which can open doors to you becoming a clinical dietitian, the number one goal which you have. But at the end, do not give up on job opportunities that come your way, because this is what I've seen in my career, that students wait for that golden job and they reject the multiple job opportunities that they are getting throughout their way. Do not do that. Take up these opportunities. You never know what doors may open next. So yes, I'm not saying that give up your ultimate goal, but do not miss out opportunities which are coming your way. And at the end, I would love to say from a student's perspective is that something again which my PhD supervisor had shared with me is that becoming a dietitian is about 99% perseverance and 1% luck. So keep practicing your skills. You may get certain things easily, which are organic to you, certain things which may be hard to develop and learn, but do not give up on your way. If you do see yourself as a dietitian, perseverance is the key to success to becoming a good dietitian in life.
All right. Thank you, Rati. So I think one of the points that you brought up was, don't give up on the opportunities. I think the opportunities are plenty. Sometimes we have the choice of choosing which area of dietetics we want to go into, or even has the liberty to reject some job opportunities because there is a lot of opportunities. I think that's one way of looking at that. All right. Okay, Rati. So thank you very much for sharing your experience. Okay, it's very enriching indeed, and we can see how rewarding the career of dietetics is. Okay, thank you, Rati.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah. So now we will move on to the question and answer session. Can I please have all the panelists to on their cameras, and our audience, please feel free to type in the questions in our chat box. Right, so we can see that quite a number of questions here. Now, among the panelists, we also have Professor Andrew Daly, right, from the International Office of Griffith University, and Dr. Leon Roberts, also from the International Office of Griffith University. So welcome to Prof. Andrew and Dr. Leon.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So let's look at some of the questions. Okay. There are already some questions that have been answered. All right. In terms of whether the degree in dietetics from IMU and Griffith, whether people can work in other countries. And we have heard about how IMU degree is registrable in the Malaysian Allied Health Professional Act. So you'll be able to work in other countries. So perhaps Prof. Lawrence, do you want to add on about Griffith University, whether the students who graduate from Griffith able to work internationally?
Yeah, so thanks. I think the main advantage, usually if you just say you do your entire degree in Malaysia and decide you want to come to work in Australia, you need to do a very complicated exam to be able to work in Australia. So if you do finish your degree at Griffith, you automatically get to work in Australia. You also get to work in New Zealand without doing any other exams. And again, New Zealand is a bit of a tough country otherwise to get to work in. And there's one of the provinces in Canada as well. For other countries, you still do need to do their exam, but dietitians that have been through our process at Griffith do very well in those international exams and go on to work in the UK and countries within Europe, in particular countries like Germany and France employ our graduates.
Thank you, Prof. Lawrence. So as for IMU, we have our alumni working in Australia, Singapore, Middle Eastern countries, and many other countries. Yeah. Okay. And the next question was about how do they qualify to join the dietetics program. For IMU, you will need a pre-U university qualification, either in Foundation in Science, which you can do in IMU itself, or A-levels, STPM, your UEC and other equivalent pre-U. So you'll need a good results in biology, chemistry and maths in your pre-university. Perhaps Dr. Lana, you can mention about how do they qualify to join dietetics program in Griffith?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Carney. So in particular, with transferring to Griffith, it would be an important thing to have an IELTS score of 7. Which is meeting our accreditation guidelines for the Dietitians Australia. Other than that, it would be the same entry qualifications that you would need for IMU, and you'd transfer into the year 3 of our degree.
Okay, thank you, Lana. And then the next two questions I see that Prof. Andrew already answered about obtaining visa for transfer and whether Australia is accepting our students. Prof. Andrew, do you want to reiterate?
Yes, so we've been accepting students since January, so most of our international students are already back, possibly with the exception of China, who are still closed. But our students are here on campus. The question related to COVID, obviously COVID comes and goes. It's good to be vaccinated generally, but also I think Lauren and Lana will emphasise you'll need vaccinations to go into places like aged care facilities and hospitals and so on, as well as a range of other vaccinations that you would normally need. So really there's no issues in terms of students coming back. Within the health faculty, we've got more students here today than we've ever had. So it's really a positive thing. Visas, there really shouldn't be an issue with this articulation. Articulations are pretty common. Obviously, I don't know everybody's individual circumstances, if they have a long criminal history or if there's other things that may influence the visa that I don't know about. Obviously, I can't absolutely say you'll get a visa, but for most students, there's absolutely no problem at all. We do have agents within Malaysia who help with applications, but will also help out with visas, and they don't charge a fee for that if we give them a commission. So if you are concerned about that process, they can certainly help you.
Okay, thanks, Prof. Andrew. I think from our experience of transferring our students to Newcastle, Australia, since last year, there is no issues, in terms of whether it's visa or entry to Australia. So we hope it will be the same for Griffith, Australia soon. Okay, now I have a question about whether there's internship provided in the degree. So I would like to answer for IMU's program. For IMU, you have 40 weeks of internship. You will have a chance to practice as a dietitian in various hospitals, government hospitals, private hospitals. You also have opportunity of attending a 4-week international mobility program, whereby you practice as dietitian in some of the countries, such as our students go to Taiwan, China, and India to have a 4 weeks international mobility program. Right? So yes, we have internship provided within the degree. And Alana, how about for Griffith University?
Thank you. And that's the placement that I was talking about. So we do have the internship option, which is our 22 weeks of placement within the degree. We actually then have an internship option that we call it, which is an elective placement, which students can do in addition to their 22 weeks of placement. And they can do that in a range of different areas that are a little bit more innovative than our current placement locations that I did discuss earlier.
Thanks, Lana. All right. Okay, then we have a question about if they take a 4-year degree program in IMU but want to do their internship in Australia, all right? So if you finish your 4-year degree program, as I mentioned, part of the internship is a 4 weeks mobility placement whereby you can go to various countries. So yes, we can try to work out something of student exchange, which probably we can work it out with our partner universities in the future. And about working in Australia after you receive your IMU degree, it's definitely possible. Like what Prof. Lauren and Lana has mentioned just now, the degree is internationally recognized, right? Anyone want to add on to that? Maybe Prof. Andrew, you want to add on to that?
I was reading through the questions.
Okay, it's
about the question though, Canny, and the person has said after they graduate from IMU, that question, and my advice would be after graduation it's very different, and then you need to pass the national exam of Dietitians Australia to be able to come here. And so I would not leave it until after. I would do the 4-week mobility. We can work out if you just want a bit of an Australian experience, not the full 2 years, and just want to come for that 4 weeks, that would be perfect. And but definitely do that before you graduate, because it's just more of a process if you want to come just for a little bit, but after you graduate.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, Prof. Lauren. Okay, our next question is, what are the areas of postgraduate studies that they can go into, after finishing a dietetics degree? So perhaps, Prof. Lauren, with your vast experience in the field of dietetics, where can the students go after they finish their degree?
I think dietetics is a wonderful undergraduate degree for lots of different postgraduate studies. You will learn the rigor of a science degree. And in my experience, people might go into lots of different areas. So they might go into more, if they want to do coursework, postgraduate studies, you could do more studies in the area of food and agriculture. You could do more studies in the medical sciences. Some people do more studies in the counselling sciences and to become more qualified to work with, say, eating disordered clients. I guess our main area, at the moment, we don't offer postgraduate coursework related to dietetics, although Griffith more broadly has lots of options. Our main area would be in further research degrees. So students that graduate from the honours option, for example, at IMU or at Griffith, could apply to do a PhD at our university. So if you really want to dedicate yourself, for 3 years of your life to doing further research to answer a question that's been raised in nutrition and dietetics, and this is not always straight nutrition and dietetics. We have lots of partnerships. So that might be laboratory based with medical science, or it might be based with population health. There's a real variety of things that you can study. And we have a very strong group of students doing their PhD at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Prof. Lauren.
A few extra options, and it's all about options. Medicine, our medical program is postgraduate. You would certainly be qualified to go there, and you'd be valuable within that program. Public health, global public health. And if you're looking at that management stream, health services management is postgraduate. So that will help you go through into the management within those major hospitals and health facilities.
Okay, thanks, Prof. Andrew. I think even speaking from my experience, I realized that so many courses that we can do, after finishing our degree. In fact, I did my PhD in IMU, looking into bone health in children. All right. So in IMU, we do have the opportunity to do your master's and PhD in the research work in dietetics. And we focus on a lot of work with diabetes, bone health, public health, nutrition, and so on and so forth. Okay. So thank you for that. All right. Let's see the next question. Okay. This is a bit critical question. A particular attendee asked whether if they graduate with Bachelor's of degree in dietetics in Australia, how is the rate of employment for a foreign student compared to the local dietitians in Australia itself? So maybe Prof. Andrew. Or Prof. Lauren.
Look, for dietetics in particular, Lauren, I'm sure can jump in. I don't know exactly the number. What I know is they fall within the allied health field, and they've got the highest employment within Australia within 4 months of graduation. I'll also say on the Gold Coast here, we've got the highest rate of industry growth, and that's been driven by health, the healthcare industry. So very, very good employability. International students, I also suggest, have got a couple of advantages over locals. One, they tend to speak multiple languages. So our community here on the Gold Coast, 50% of us were born overseas. If you can speak multiple languages, that enhances your employability. Also, international students tend to be a little bit more mobile. So if you're prepared to go 50 kilometers down the road, often Australian students want to stay at home with mum and dad. The internationals have already come all the way to Australia, so that little bit of movement's not a big issue for them. So my experience in general with health is there's no issues with students getting employment, but it is good to make sure you've got a rounded CV, not just study, but have other things on your CV as well.
Okay, thanks, Prof. Andrew. I think
Well,
that's good news
maybe
for.
wanted to jump in as well.
I might just add, we've not noticed any difference in the rate of employment of our graduates that come from overseas originally that want to stay in Australia versus going home. Some students go home other than working here, but others get a job. As Andrew said, a lot of our population, we've got a very multicultural population in Australia anyway, and so we have a lot of people that are maybe overseas born that are now Australian citizens or permanent residents here. And as a lecturer, I can't tell the difference between those that are our international students and the students in our class that just happen to be born overseas. So it's very common. People on the placement sites are very used to Australians looking, coming from all different sorts of countries. So I don't think there's any sort of employment bias, which might happen in some other places, but I don't think it happens in Australia. The thing that we find when we do studies of our employability is that one of the best ways to get yourself a job is out of placement, making good relationships with your supervisors on placement and forming good networks. So it's more about maybe, learning those skills in forming networks. So that's the main thing, not where you were born.
Thanks, Prof. Lauren. It's nice to hear that. And I think one of the advantages Malaysian have is that most of us speak at least minimum three languages. All right. Okay. Let's go on to the.
Can I just jump in there for a second?
Sure,
Sorry.
Lana, go ahead.
Just to really highlight at Griffith, we have a big employability focus. So throughout the degree, we have a range of different assignments and initiatives to really encourage students to think about what sort of career that they want, what sort of job they want to go into, and start working towards making their CV well-rounded, like Professor Davey was indicating. And so what we find is that when our graduates go into the workforce, that they really know who they are, what their unique skills are that they can bring. And as a result, they can set up their own niche that allows people to thrive because they know what background they're from, what they can bring, and really target their future career to what their passion is.
All right. Thanks, Lana, for that. Okay, I think we'll take one last question in view of time. Okay, are there any scholarships available? So perhaps either Prof. Andrew or Prof. Lana, whether there are scholarships available.
I can cover that from the Griffith end. I'm not sure about the IMU side. We do have a suite of scholarships. They obviously get reviewed every year, but for the last few years and into next year, we've got three main scholarships, what we call a merit scholarship. So that's an automatic 20% for students, and that's GPA based. An excellence, which is 25%. And again, that's automatic if the students have got the right GPA. And then a remarkable, which is 50%, but that's highly competitive. So it's GPA plus a statement. My memory of the requirements to move from IMU to Griffith are such that the students would automatically get a 20 or 25% scholarship on coming here because the GPA requirement it is at that cutoff point. So it's and I'm pretty sure that those scholarships will continue in a similar form to what they are already. So yeah, it's a simple, no application required. You'll automatically be offered the scholarship when you get the offer of the place.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Prof. Andrew. For IMU, we do have various scholarships available, even scholarships that's provided by IMU for the students to continue their studies. Okay. All right. So I think, we have covered most of the details. One last question, if Prof. Andrew, you don't mind, about vaccinations. Does it? Yep. What requirement do they need to meet in terms of vaccination?
Oh, look, I'll flick that on to Lana, because my comments really start relating to placement requirements rather. I think the original question was about coming to Australia, so that's not an issue, but placements I think is more of an issue, and I think Lana or Lauren would be more across exactly what they need for the placement.
Thank you. I'm happy to comment on that. So our students have to be what we call fit for professional practice, and so that's the range of vaccinations. It's a CPR, first aid, health, police check, working with children's checks. All of those sort of requirements are underpinned to go in any of our placements throughout the health group, because the health system needs to know that each of our students have ticked all their boxes and have all their relevant vaccinations. So the standard vaccinations that you would expect to see, probably similar to in Malaysia, I would imagine. But yeah, there's a range of things, and that can be found on our website. I can link that.
All
Do
right.
you know what the current requirement is for COVID?
Okay, all right. So similarly for IMU, we also have, before we send them to placement, there is a few vaccination ticks, hepatitis, typhoid, and all that they will have to take in, and usually we arrange with our IMU healthcare itself for our students. Okay, all right. So I think we have covered all our questions. It has been very interesting indeed and very enlightening webinar, and I'm sure all our audience agree to that. So to the audience, this webinar was recorded, so it will be available in the IMU YouTube channel in a few days' time. All right, we'll keep you informed about that. I would like to thank all the speakers, Prof. Lauren, Dr. Lana, Dr. Rati, Prof. Andrew, Dr. Lion for joining us, and also Prof. Winnie for this fantastic webinar. I'm sure you agree with me that it has been very fruitful indeed. All right. Okay, so with that, I would like to end this session. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good weekend.